Bon, j'espère que le son va pas être trop fort. Donc oui, on est sur The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe édition. Attention, s'il vous plaît. Euh, C'est un jeu qui se veut méta, en fait. Il faut le voir pour le comprendre, mais j'y ai joué à l'époque, quand il était sorti, mais c'était genre il y a presque 10 ans maintenant. Et c'est incroyable, c'est un jeu qui est méta. Ça va nous parler, ça brise le quatrième mur. Mais c'est trop cool. Et, alors je vais mettre non, par principe, parce que déjà je m'en souviens pas assez. Je connais pas assez le jeu, comme si en mode, moi je l'avais déjà fait. Et surtout, il y a des nouveaux trucs dedans, donc je vais mettre non. Déplacer le curseur jusqu'à ce que l'ordinateur soit à peine visible. Bon, je mets toujours un peu plus, moi, donc voilà. Ouais, c'est bien, là. Entrée l'heure actuelle. Quelle heure est-il? Il est 11h20. C'est ça? C'est ça. Attendez, je me demande si je me suis pas trompé pour l'heure. Je peux le modifier ou pas? Attendez, déjà, on va modifier un tout petit peu le menu. Parce que ça va beaucoup parler, hein, donc... Parce que j'ai c'était PM, mais... Non, c'est bon. S'accroupir, pause, interagir. Oh, bon, tout est très simple. Hein. Il y a des commandes simplifiées. Oh, ok. La taille est bonne, franchement, ouais. Écoutez, non, bah on est prêt alors. Hein. Bah écoutez, on y va. On joue à The Stanley Parable. Ça va être exceptionnel.
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy. And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
Et on y est. Ça y est, on joue. Incroyable. Ce qui est trop marrant, c'est que du coup, la touche d'action, ça fait un bruit de clavier. Donc du coup, voilà, on est avec The Stanley Parable et on va, du coup, essayer de comprendre. C'est vrai que c'est un peu perturbant sur le réticule. Attendez, faites voir. C'est mieux, en vrai. On peut pas ouvrir.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
On va aller à la salle de réunion, donc.
No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers. Stanley went around touching every little thing in the office, but it didn't make a single difference, nor did it advance the story in any
Est-ce que vous
way.
commencez à comprendre où est le truc? C'est que voilà, ça commence à nous parler. Et là, il est content, il vient de nous dire qu'on est en train de toucher à tous les trucs du bureau. Ok, on peut pas aller là. Je me souviens vraiment plus grand chose. Hein. Ah, c'est une autre pièce. Oui, parce que je me disais, merde. C'est un miroir, mais je ne me vois pas. Merde, j'ai éteint. Pardon. Je voulais pas éteindre.
Stanley clicked on literally every single door in the office because he doesn't pick up well on cues from his environment.
J'ai l'air con, hein, mais ça me fait rire. Pas, hein. Et là, faut aller à gauche ou à droite? Ah là, donc là, maintenant, ils me disent qu'on va dans celle de gauche. La question, c'est est-ce qu'on va à celle de gauche ou celle de droite? On va suivre. Allez, on va dire que on est allé à gauche.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Est-ce qu'on peut revenir en arrière? On peut s'accroupir quand même.
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track. There was nothing here. No choice to make, no path to follow, just an empty broom closet. No reason to still be here.
Est-ce qu'il va continuer à parler si je restais là?
It was baffling that Stanley was still just sitting in the broom closet. He wasn't even doing anything. At least if there was something to interact with, coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Si j'ai envie d'aller en bas. Ah ah! What a twist! Je vais en bas.
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished. His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all. None of it made any logical sense.
Oh quoi?
And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went?
Pourquoi je suis en train de faire une loupe?
These rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating? No,
Oh
Stanley said
merde.
to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. I'm dreaming! He yelled. This is all a dream. Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation.
Fait mal au crâne.
His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself,
je suis bloqué.
I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So, he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground.
Oh!
Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical starfield, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts.
C'est terrible, hein? On fait le même chemin en boucle.
All very odd, and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams. The truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself? Believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life. Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago?
Ah, j'ai tout foutu en l'air. Hein.
This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment, and my wife, and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay.
Bon.
Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black.
C'est excellent.
This is the story of a woman named Mariella.
What?
Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk.
What?
Soon turned to go.
Je suis mort.
For just a few brief moments, she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy. This much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day, the very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
Alors évidemment, il n'y a pas que ça. Hein. Voilà, on est de retour.
All of his co-workers were gone.
On est de retour au tout début.
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Est-ce qu'on va aller affronter le chef du coup? Allez, on y va.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
On va à celle de gauche.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Allez, on
Coming
monte.
to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Oh putain, c'est stylé. To be rich, is it a crime? To combat crimes, isn't it rich? What a life it would be to have to pick just one. Ça fait réfléchir. Bah, je peux pas utiliser les toilettes. On se voit pas dans le miroir. Hein. C'est un peu triste. Je m'enferme dans les toilettes. Plus personne ne me verra. Bonjour. Là, je suis censé aller chez le patron, là. Mais en vrai... Et si on montait? Musique d'ambiance. Oh, les vibrations HD dans la manette, elles sont folles, hein, putain. Wesh. Wesh, il est très long cet ascenseur. Oh. Qu'est-ce que c'est que ça? Pourquoi c'est si long? Quoi? Attends, non, c'est pas possible. Faut aller en bas du coup? C'est un faux ascenseur. C'est une vanne. C'est pas possible. Ou alors faut attendre vraiment très longtemps. Est-ce que j'ai la patience d'attendre 5 minutes qu'il se passe un truc? Peut-être pas. Mais c'était très drôle par contre la séquence de musique. Hein. Bon du coup le boss. Le patron.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this, what dark secret was being held from him. What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
Ah merde, c'est pas ça? C'est combien? C'est 2, 8, quoi? 4, 5? Je sais plus. Il a dit combien?
Sat around twiddling his thumbs. Trying to input anything on the device was useless, since he could never, yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons.
Ah oui, c'était ça.
Stanley had to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing.
Je suis trop con, hein.
Into the newly opened
Pardon, mais je suis trop con. Hein. Putain. Là, il y a un ascenseur. Bah, là, il n'y a rien en même temps. Hein. Bon. Bah, ascenseur, hein, à nouveau.
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long. Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Et là, il y a écrit s'échapper. Qu'est-ce qu'on fait? Est-ce qu'on va dans la salle de contrôle de l'esprit? Ou est-ce qu'on s'échappe? Parce qu'il y a quand même écrit Escape, hein. Il y a écrit quoi, là? J'explore ou je... Non, du coup, je fais quoi? Je m'échappe? Je m'échappe? Gauche, droite, gauche, droite, gauche, droite. Foutu pour foutu. C'est difficile de faire un choix. Vas-y, on s'échappe.
Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death.
Comme ça, je devrais rencontrer qu'une mort violente.
The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track.
En fait, je... Quoi?
At this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
Putain, mais what the fuck? Oh! Oh la vache.
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't
Quoi?
see the bigger picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow
Quoi?
vision of what this world is. Perhaps his death was of no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. And so he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life. Farewell, Stanley.
Non! Oh non.
Farewell, Stanley, cried the narrator.
Oh, what?
Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly.
Oh! Oh, c'est énorme!
And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish? When every path you can walk has been created for you long in
Oh, ça c'est
advance,
fort.
death becomes meaningless, making life the same. Do you see now? Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
Oh, plan de bureau. Ce plan vous montre les bureaux au début de partie. Le chemin entre le bureau de Stanley et les deux portes. Le tout premier chemin conçu dans le jeu des sections est ajouté et modifié au cours du développement. L'organisation générale est restée presque inchangée depuis la première itération. Excellent! Il y a des trucs écrits. Les deux portes. Ouverte constitue la toute première pierre du game design de Stanley Parable. Une fois que cette salle a été créée, le reste du jeu a émergé à partir de ce point de départ comme une exploration de la contradiction posée par cette pièce. Il y avait marqué quoi là? L'ouverture devait être tirée pour ce couloir a été déplacée et modifiée avec le joueur soit sûr d'atteindre les deux portes au bon moment. Excellent. On dirait qu'on était vraiment dans les... On est dans le making of quoi. Le bureau. Excellent. Son de bouton. Excellent. Il y a des remerciements. Ok. Ah putain, mais on a vraiment un genre de making of. What? Oh coucou. C'est trop pas par rapport au ton du jeu. Certains l'ont vu aussi comme une manière de nous moquer des amateurs de jeux de tir, ce qui n'était pas notre but. Putain, les refs à Tron et autres sont vénères. Hein. Qu'est-ce que c'est? Are you a rock? Mais what the fuck, c'est des vraies questions qu'ils ont reçues. Mais non, mais c'est lunaire. Mais c'est génial, hein. C'est énorme, hein. Putain, on se fait spoil des trucs. Mais c'est énorme. Mais comment j'ai fait pour atteindre ça? What? Attends, quoi? Il y a des trucs que j'ai pas vus, que je connais même pas du jeu. Quoi? C'est fou. C'est complètement fou. Attends, nous avions une fin qui ne se finissait vraiment que lorsque le jour. Ah. Il y a trop de trucs, hein. C'est complètement fou, hein. C'est lunaire. On est vraiment dans on est vraiment dans le best-of du jeu. Du coup, c'est là la suite.
Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How they wish to control one another. How they both wish to be free. Can you see? Can you see how much they need one another?
Je sais pas ce que j'ai fait.
Perhaps not. Sometimes these things cannot be seen.
J'ai tout cassé.
But listen to me. You
Oh.
can still save these two. You can stop the program before they both fail. Turn off your PlayStation. There's no other way to beat this game.
Ah, c'est
As long as you
excellent.
move forward, you'll be walking someone else's path. Stop now and it'll be your only true choice. Whatever you do, choose it. Don't let time choose for you. Don't let...
Je sais pas. Oh putain. Mais c'est terrifiant, hein. C'est vraiment terrifiant, hein. Ah, on est de retour. Est-ce qu'on peut? Moi, je...
Stanley simply couldn't handle the pressure.
Mais
He had to
non.
make a decision. Whatever crucial outcome fell under his responsibility. He had never been trained for that. No. This couldn't go any way except badly. The thing to do now, Stanley thought to himself, is to wait. Nothing will hurt me. Nothing will break me. In here I can be happy forever. I will be happy. Stanley waited. Hours passed, then days. Had years gone by? He no longer had the ability to tell. But the one thing he knew for sure, beyond any doubt, was that if he waited long enough, the answers would come. Eventually, someday, they would arrive. Soon, very soon now, this will end. He will be spoken to. He will be told what to do. Now it's just a little bit closer. Now it's even closer. Here it comes.
Excellent. Je pensais pas que j'allais créer un truc comme ça, hein. Je dois y aller, bisous. Y a pas de souci, plein de bisous. Bah quoi? On est de retour.
But Stanley simply couldn't handle the pressure. What if
Oh
he
non.
had to make a decision?
On va recommencer. Putain, ça a juste fait une nouvelle fin, en fait. Trop bizarre.
Wait, Stanley thought to himself. Am I sure that the orders stopped coming in? How is that possible? They never stopped. Surely I
Oh
was
putain, il dit
mistaken.
un autre truc. Quoi?
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Ah, yes, truly a room worth admiring. It had really been worth the detour after all, just to spend a few moments here in this immaculate, beautifully constructed room. Stanley simply stood here, drinking it all in. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
Non.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
Putain, et... On peut tomber, vous pensez? Et mourir? Dans d'atroces souffrances? Est-ce qu'on essaye de mourir?
But in his eagerness to prove that he is in control of the story and no one gets to tell him what to do, Stanley leaped from the platform and plunged to his death.
Oh no!
Good job, Stanley. Everyone thinks you are very powerful.
Non.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Wow, yes, this room. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left. Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago. Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here.
Ah, excellent.
I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time.
Oh,
There's
est-ce qu'on
someone
pourrait
you've
pas...
been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. What? Really? I was in the middle of something. Do you have zero consideration for others? Are you that convinced that I want something bad to happen to you? Why, I don't know how to convince you of this, but I really do want to help you, to show you something beautiful. Look, let me prove it. Let me prove that I'm on your side. Give me a chance. Now listen carefully, this is important. Stanley walked through the red door. Aha, perhaps you misunderstood. Stanley walked through the red door. I still don't think we're communicating properly. Stanley walked through the red door.
Oh!
All right, fine. Go ahead, Stanley. You want to know so badly what's out there? You want to find out what lies at the end of this road you've chosen? Well, don't let me stop you. You see?
Oh!
There's nothing here. I haven't even finished building this section of the map because you were never supposed to be here in the first place. Broken rooms, exposed developer textures. Is this what you had wanted? Was it worth ruining the entire story I had written out specifically for you? Do you not think I put a lot of time into that? Because I did. And in the end, it was all for nothing. Because this is what you wanted to see. Help me here, Stanley. Help elucidate these strange and unknowable desires of yours. What would
Il y a volontairement des bugs de texture, c'est énorme.
Vehicles? Skill trees? Work with me. You've given me absolutely nothing so far. Tell you what. Let me take a stab in the dark at a new design and you can give me some feedback. There we go. A third option. This already feels leaps ahead of where we were before. Go ahead, Stanley. Take it for a spin. Okay, I'm going to stop you there. Now, tell me about your experience with this new version. Would you say that the game benefited from allowing you more choices? Feel free to be honest. I'm looking for some real critical feedback here. A 1? I mean, I can understand if you had reservations, you saw ways the game could be improved to more fully express itself mechanically and artistically, but a 1? That's not even helpful. What am I supposed to do with that? But I guess it isn't my place to judge. Here, based on the data from your previous playthrough, I've compiled a new version. And to be perfectly candid, I think I've knocked it out of the park with this one. Let's take a look. Oh. Now, would you say that competitive leaderboard helped you feel motivated to keep walking through doors? Again, honest answers, please.
What? Quoi? C'est bugué? Qu'est-ce que c'est que cette merde? Ah, je crois que ça a planté. Trop bizarre.
Someone was following Stanley. He was sure of it. If he checked over his shoulder now, he would surely catch them. It was only a matter of time.
Tu me terrifies quand tu dis ça.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. The lounge was sublime, a work of art. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left. Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago. Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. Please, stop trying to make every decision by yourself. Now, I'm not asking for me, I'm asking for her. This is it, Stanley. Your chance to redeem yourself. To put your work aside. To let her back into your life. She's been waiting. That's her, Stanley. You need to be the one to do this. To reach out to her. If you can truly place your faith...
Mm-hmm. Oh!
Stanley, is that you? Hold on, sweetie. Sorry to keep you waiting. I'm just pulling the bread out of the oven. All right. Okay, there we go. All right, now, I want you to come in and tell me all about your day.
Gotcha. Oh, come on. Did you actually think you had a loving wife who'd want to commit their life to you? I'm trying to make a point here, Stanley. I'm trying to get you to see something. Come inside. Let me show you what's really going on here. Sorry, but you're in my story now.
Sérieusement? Putain.
This is a very sad story about the death of a man named Stanley. Stanley is quite a boring fellow. He has a job that demands nothing of him, and every button that he pushes is a reminder of the inconsequential nature of his existence. Look at him there, pushing buttons, doing exactly what he's told to do. Now he's pushing a button. Now he's eating lunch. Now he's going home. Now he's coming back to work. One might even feel sorry for him, except that he's chosen this life. But in his mind, he can go on fantastic adventures. From behind his desk, Stanley dreamed of wild expeditions into the unknown, fantastic discoveries of new lands. It was wonderful. And each day that he returned to work was a reminder that none of it would ever happen to him. And so he began to fantasize about his own job. First, he imagined that one day while at work, he stepped up from his desk to realize that all of his co-workers, his boss, everyone in the building had suddenly vanished off the face of the earth. The thought excited him terribly. So he went further. He imagined that he came to 2 open doors and that he could go through either. At last, choice. It barely even mattered what lay behind each door. The mere thought that his decisions would mean something was almost too wonderful to behold. As he wandered through this fantasy world, he began to fill it with many possible paths and destinations. Down one path lay an enormous round room with monitors and mind controls. And down another was a yellow line that weaved in many directions. And down another was a game with a baby. And he called it the Stanley Parable. It was such a wonderful fantasy, and so in his head he relived it again, and then again, and again, over and over, wishing beyond hope that it would never end, that he might always feel this free. Surely there's an answer down some new path, mustn't there be? Perhaps if he played just one more time. But there is no answer. How could there possibly be? In reality, all he's doing is pushing the same buttons he always has. Nothing has changed. The longer he spends here, the more invested he gets, the more he forgets which life is the real one. And I'm trying to tell him this, that in this world he can never be anything but an observer, that as long as he remains here, he's slowly killing himself. But he won't listen to me. He won't stop. Here, watch this. Stanley, the next time the screen asks you to push a button, do not do it. You see? Can he just not hear me? How can I tell him in a way that he'll understand that every second he remains here, he's electing to kill himself? How can I get him to see what I see? How can I make him look at himself? I suppose I can't, not in the way I want him to. But I don't make the rules. I simply play to my intended purpose, the same as Stanley. We're not so different, I suppose. I'll try once more to convey all this to him. I'm compelled to. I must. Perhaps, well, maybe this time he'll see. Maybe this time. And I tried again, and Stanley pushed a button. And I tried again, and Stanley pushed a button. And I tried...
C'est de la folie, hein.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
On va essayer de refaire le truc de base.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office. Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. What could it mean? Stanley was in such a rush to get through the story as quickly as possible, he didn't even have a single minute to just let the narrator talk. That kind of anxiety isn't healthy, so he relaxed for a few moments with some calming New Age music.
What? Mais ça va pas, hein.
Feeling soothed and rejuvenated, Stanley calmly walked forward into the opened passageway.
Bon, du coup, on avait l'ascenseur, machin, et du coup, il fallait aller tout droit.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility. The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out? Now the monitors jumped to life,
Wow.
their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
On est où, nous? On est là. Huh.
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No. He refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never. It was unthinkable, wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy, or sad, or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place.
Désactivé.
And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
Ok. Putain. Il faut trouver les numéros. Vous pensez? Genre. 5. Ah là, il y a un escalier, attendez. Putain, on peut pas y accéder, merde. Trop bizarre. Trop bizarre.
And when at last he found the source of the room's power, he knew it was his duty, his obligation, to put an end to this... Oh, Stanley, you didn't just activate the controls, did you? After they kept you enslaved all these years, you go and you try to take control of the machine for yourself. Is that what you wanted? Control? Oh, Stanley, I applaud your effort, I really do. But you need to understand, there's only so much that machine can do. You were supposed to let it go, turn the controls off, and leave. If you want to throw my story off track, you're going to have to do much better than that. I'm afraid you don't have nearly the power you think you do. For example, and I believe you'll find this pertinent, Stanley suddenly realized he had just initiated the network's emergency detonation system. In the event that this machine is activated without proper DNA identification, nuclear detonators are said to explode, eliminating the entire complex. How long until detonation then? Let's say, 2 minutes. Now this is making things a little more fun, isn't it, Stanley? It's your time to shine. You are the star. It's your story now. Shape it to your heart's desires. Oh, this is much better than what I had in mind. What a shame we have so little time left to enjoy it. Mere moments until the bomb goes off. But what precious moments each one of them is. More time to talk about you, about me, where we're going, what all this means. I barely know where to start. What's that? You'd like to know where your co-workers are? A moment of solace before you're obliterated? All right, I'm in a good mood. You're gonna die anyway. I'll tell you exactly what happened to them. I erased them. I turned off the machine. I set you free. Of course, that was merely in this instance of the story. Sometimes when I tell it, I simply let you sit there in your office forever, pushing buttons endlessly and then dying alone. Other times, I let the office sink into the ground, swallowing everyone inside, or I let it burn to a crisp. I have to say this, though, this version of events has been rather amusing. Watching you try to make sense of everything and take back the control wrested away from you, it's quite rich. I almost hate to see it go. But I'm sure whatever I come up with on the next go-around will be even better.
Mais what?
My goodness, only 34 seconds left. But I'm enjoying this so much. You know what? To hell with it. I'm going to put some extra time on the clock, why not? These are precious additional seconds, Stanley.
5.
Time doesn't grow on trees.
Il est où le 5?
Oh dear me, what's the matter, Stanley? Is it that you have no idea where you're going or what you're supposed to be doing right now? Or did you just assume when you saw that timer that something in this room was capable of turning it off? I mean, look at you. Running from button to button, screen to screen, clicking on every little thing in this room. These numbered buttons, no, these colored ones. Or maybe this big red button, or this door. Everything, anything, something here will save me. Why would you think that, Stanley? That this video game can be beaten? Won? Solved? Do you have any idea what your purpose in this place is? Stanley, you're in for quite a disappointment. But here's a spoiler for you. That timer isn't a catalyst to keep the action moving along. It's just seconds ticking away to your death. You're only still playing instead of watching a cutscene because I want to watch you for every moment that you're powerless. To see you made humble. This is not a challenge. It's a tragedy. You wanted to control this world, that's fine. But I'm going to destroy it first, so you can't. Take a look at the clock, Stanley. That's 30 seconds you have left to struggle. 30 seconds until a big boom and then nothing. No ending here, just you being blown to pieces. Will you cling desperately to your frail life, or will you let it go peacefully?
Mais what?
Another choice. Make it count, or don't. It's all the same to me, all a part of the joke. And believe me, I will be laughing at every second of your inevitable life from the moment we fade in until the moment I say, happily ever after.
What? C'était terrifiant. Un petit peu angoissant, hein, quand même. Bon, écoutez, je pense qu'on va s'arrêter là. Je pense qu'on a fait à peu près le tour du jeu. Mais c'est un jeu qui est super cool et que je vous invite à faire. Il y a plein de fins différentes, il y a plein de choses à faire et c'est ça qui est génial. Je vous fais plein de bisous. Je vous dis bye bye et à la prochaine.